I watched him every game of the playoffs with Quinn Hughes. Obviously, the two of them together were a revelation in Vancouver. It's Vancouver's best season since probably 2011. They're in a bit of a cap crunch. I hate to pry, but I actually don't hate to pry. What can you tell us about preparing for those negotiations?
Well, I don't want to say too much. I've been very careful not to provide any oxygen with regard to all of the speculation. And like one of the big problems with the salary cap, in my opinion, and I have been very vocal about it.
No.
I know it's shocking to you. I know it's totally shocking to you. Yeah. But Adam, the game should be about the game. People should be talking about the players. Talk about a goal. Talk about an amazing pass. Shouldn't be discussing and wringing their hands. Every fan base, 6.5 million, 7 million, 8 million. He's not an 8. He scores a beautiful goal. He's an $8 million player. He doesn't have a great game. I wouldn't give that guy 6.5 million. And the fact that there's a cap and it's not just teams having a budget and they're signing guys, the fact that it's a cap and there's only so many cap dollars to go around makes the cap the story.
Yes, and it's not about if the player is good or not. It's about, does their contract match their play?
Right. So for the entire second half of the year, the Canucks market has been obsessed. First it was Pettersson, and now they've been obsessed with Filip Hronek, and how much is that contract going to cost? And they should trade him. No, they should keep him. It's all about don't pay him $8 million, don't pay him $7 million. Oh, I wouldn't give him 6.5, 7.5, and it's so ridiculous. I've been hearing people talk about negotiations that have been going on and how much he's asking for, and I'm sitting back and saying, if anybody would know, I would know. Right.
Have you been getting questions? Have people been
stuff that
calling
I'm hearing? People are saying, he turned this down, and it's fantasy.
Okay,
they don't know what the hell they're talking about. And actually, Phil and I, a couple of times, he's called me, and we're like, a clip comes across our way, and we're laughing. We're like, what is this? It's Mary Poppins. It's Cinderella. It's just. It's unbelievable.
I have to be honest, I'm on a show that's probably guilty of that sometimes. Well, but
I'm not going to say anything about that. Yeah. But the thing is, if you try saying that about any of my players, I'm going to go after you on Twitter.
That's fair. Listen, that's fair. I think Dan Milstein did actually over a Dan Murphy report too. And regardless of that, the one thing I do want to say is that Filip Hronek is an RFA, and not necessarily pertaining to him, but when you're a year from RFA for a lot of players, you're looking at, if I'm going to sign for more than a year, a lot of teams don't want to sign you for a year and walk you to free agency. If I'm going to sign for more than that, I'm giving up my unrestricted free agency years, right? I'm giving up where I could make market rate, whatever market rate is that year. And we expect the cap to go up $4 million this year and next.
And you're in your 20s.
Right. And that's where you're most valuable. I mean, he's entering his prime years, and he ran the Detroit power play on a bad Detroit team for years. No disrespect to Steve Yzerman. And then
non-playoff team.
Sorry, there you go. That's a better way to. You're far better than I am. And then came in and was the best defense partner Quinn Hughes has ever had. So how do you, they always say the team holds all the cards in an RFA negotiation. When you're a year from free agency, you unrestricted, does that change things a bit?
Sure. The player has tremendous leverage, but I've been very clear. I think Phil has been very clear. He loves Vancouver.
How could you not?
Exactly. And the organization, from the time that he was traded, when they were a non-playoff team, and now they are not just a playoff team, but legitimate contenders. He loves the guys.
Sure.
He has, I think he has great rapport and respect for the coaches. So all of the factors and he loves the city, right?
As anyone who visits would, like, it's a great place to live.
Phil and his girlfriend and his dog love the city. And, so you go in and you're really upfront about how much he likes it and would like to stay. And you hope that there's a way to make it happen.
Right. And the just negotiating from an RFA point of view, just because we always hear from people, hey, not just Phil, but anybody, does the team really actually hold all the cards in an RFA situation? Or is that a little bit overblown?
I think every situation has its own DNA to it.
Okay.
And it's impossible to generalize and say team holds the cards. I think arbitration is a very fair process to get to the end result. It encourages deals to get done before a hearing.
And what do you say about deadlines?
Deadlines clarify the mind, and deals happen at deadlines. And I can't tell you how many times over my 30 years representing players that my player has filed for arbitration, and this isn't just me, this is across the board, and the deal gets done the night before the arbitration hearing or the morning of. I've even settled cases and done deals literally as the arbitrator is walking into the room and the arbitration hearing is about to start.
Do you still have to pay the arbitrator?
We don't pay the.
You don't pay the team. No, it's not your problem.
The league and the NHLPA jointly pay the arbitrator.
That's good.
Yeah. We don't.
They must laugh about that. That must be a very funny moment when they walk in and they go, "Okay, gentlemen," and we're like, "We have a deal."
Yeah, and I was we had gone in. I walked in with the player, and everybody was getting settled and opening their binders. And the GM walked over to me and tapped me on the shoulder, and he said, "Can I have a word with you outside?" And we walked outside, and we had dinner together the night before.
Sure.
Right? Me and the GM and the player went for dinner the night before the hearing. This is not people think, arbitration is so contentious and, the team is going in and trashing the player.
That's how it's framed to us as fans.
It is nothing like that. And the rules have been refined from the days where Tommy Salo was sitting in tears as his GM testified about what a terrible goalie he was. And that actually happened.
That happened.
The player was sitting there at the table in tears. And that story has gone around a lot over the years. It's not like that. The arbitration is based on statistics. And Benjamin Disraeli said there are lies, damn lies, and statistics. You can use stats to skew the results to any conclusions you want. It may not be a strong argument, but it's possible to make it. So with Filip Hronek out there's going to be a group of players who are defensemen, left shot and right shot. Right shots are more valuable than left shots. There's generally a 10% premium attached to a right shot defenseman because they're rarer. There's less right shots out there than left shot. You got to then look at what was the cap when these other deals were done and what percentage of the cap, what was the percentage, and what's the percentage of the cap with the numbers that we're talking about now that we know what the cap is likely going to be at 87, up from 87.679, up from 83.5. And you've got a group of defensemen with similar games played, similar time on ice, similar offensive production. And from that search parameter, you're going to get a group of players in this cluster. And you've got a a group of players at the bottom of that range, a group of players at the top of that range, a group of players in the middle of that range. And the team is going to go in there and argue that the player is either at the very bottom of that range or even just below that range. Mm-hmm. And the player is going to go in and argue that the player is at the top of the range, and they're going to make arguments based on the stats using comparable contracts of similarly situated players, and the arbitrator is going to decide. Right? And it's a very academic exercise.
So the emotion, the brutality of it has been kind of pulled out of it.
Well, a general manager's opinion is no longer relevant in an arbitration hearing. So a general manager doesn't testify and say, this player, I don't like his attitude, or the coaches don't like his attitude. It's not about that. Mm-hmm. It's really tied to the statistics.
Wow. When did that change happen? Was that directly after Tommy Salo, and they thought, we can't let this happen? When did you see that change?
This has been the focus has been on stats since at least 2005.